coffins and the future. At their absolute simplest, a coffin is a receptacle for a dead person. Although burial ceremonies, religious or otherwise, differ between cultures, the receptacle itself is nearly always made from wood, stone or metal. This is true whether we are talking about the most elaborate and expensive or the most plain and inexpensive coffins available. However, the actual raw materials used by coffin manufacturers will vary according to culture, demand and even legal requirements. The materials used range from cardboard to solid bronze and other metal alloys, to hardwood such as mahogany and cherry, as well as other wood such as oak and synthetic materials such as fiberglass. Making a coffin. In terms of actual skill involved, making a coffin is no different from any other branch of manufacturing. A coffin can be manufactured in any workshop floor, and the three basic components that any coffin manufacturer needs are the shell, the lining, the handles and accessories. In much of the Western world, the industry as a whole has been transformed from a specialized, bespoke-focused industry to a much more centralized enterprise. In the U.S., specialist carpenters undertook to look after the deceased person on behalf of grieving relatives. The coffin was built to specific requirements. This, of course, was the original meaning of the term undertaker. Today, coffin manufacture is a largely automated process. However, because for obvious reasons, coffin manufacture is different from other branches of manufacturing, many people actively seek an alternative to the mass-produced commodity. Whatever the source of the coffin, the whole industry is subject to stringent rules and regulations, and as such the entire manufacturing process is rigorously inspected at every stage. Everything from the gauge of metals or the grain of wood to the grade of paint is checked. Even the lining and upholstery is subject to a strict quality control regime. The future, although by its very nature of the funeral business as a whole generally operates with sensitivity, respect and decorum, it is still a business. In the UK, and despite falling death rates, the funeral business, of which coffin manufacture is an intrinsic part, is worth over $2 billion to the economy overall. As the population ages, this figure will begin to steadily increase. This is a trend which can be observed across the Western world and indeed in any region where the demographic is aging. In population terminology, this means any region of the world where the replacement ratio is less than 2. Despite the genuine concern of a population which is set to exceed 9 billion people by 2050, what is less reported is that the UN predicts this will rapidly drop to more manageable levels because less people are having less children today in the early 21st century. The choice of coffin available and the fact that people have varying attitudes towards death in general has precipitated diversification in coffin manufacture. For example, in the U.S., cremation is becoming more popular than a traditional burial. Clearly, the material used will be different in the construction of coffins which are going to incinerated. In addition, in the Western world there is a burgeoning realization that manufacturers can contact customers directly, either through advertising or through the internet. In addition, because a funeral can be an expensive business, both funeral directors and coffin manufacturers are offering an ever-expanding range of funeral insurance options. The policyholder pays a regular premium in much the same manner as for any insurance service, whereby upon the policyholders passing, the funeral expenses can be paid for. Coffin manufacture as an industry is always going to be with us. Bearing this in mind, the industry needs to reflect the choices available to the people it ultimately serves.